Full House sold us a vision of a family that could solve any problem in 30 minutes. But real life doesn't have a laugh track. Behind the bright colors and hugs were stories of eating disorders, broken marriages, and professional betrayal. Today, we're peeling back the wallpaper of the Tanner home to show you the scars that the actors carried long after the series finale. The truth is much heavier than the fiction. John Stamos as Jesse Katsopolis, the gilded idol of the San Francisco soundstage. Born on August 19, 1963 in Cypress, California, the raven-haired rocker was forged in the fires of daytime drama before ascending to the throne of television's most worshipped heartthrob. At the age of 24, Stamos assumed the mantle of Jesse Katsopolis, the leather-clad, Elvis-obsessed rebel who provided the cool pulse for the Tanner household. For 8 seasons, his shimmering charm and signature "Have Mercy" catchphrase defined a generation's romantic ideal. Yet beneath the pompadoured perfection of the pretty boy facade, he stood as a prisoner of his own success, navigating a gilded cage of fame, where the roar of the crowd often masked a growing sense of professional isolation and the crushing weight of maintaining a flawless public image. Beyond the laughter of the sitcom world, Stamos navigated a landscape of profound tragedy and marital upheaval. His first high-profile marriage to model Rebecca Romine ended in a shattering 2005 divorce, a public collapse that he later described as a primary catalyst for a decade-long downward spiral. The devastating loss of his parents, Bill and Loretta, further unmoored him, leaving a void that he attempted to fill with a secret, intensifying battle with substance abuse and alcoholism. This personal disintegration culminated in a harrowing 2015 DUI arrest, a rock-bottom moment of public shame that forced him to confront his demons. For years, he carried the silent burden of being America's uncle, while his private life was fractured by grief, loneliness, and the fear that his best days were buried beneath the Tanner house. Eventually, staging a triumphant redemption, Stamos found his ultimate sanctuary in a late-in-life marital bliss and fatherhood. His 2018 marriage to model Caitlin McHugh and the birth of his son Billy provided the emotional anchor that had eluded him during his wilder years. He successfully traded his sitcom pinstripes for the gritty realism of the medical drama ER and the chilling depths of You, proving the enduring strength of his dramatic range. At 62, he remains a formidable force in the industry with an estimated net worth of $25 million. Residing in Los Angeles, he continues his legendary collaboration with the Beach Boys, while serving as a resilient elder statesman of Hollywood, a man who survived the wreckage of a tragic middle act to build a legacy of authenticity, sobriety, and profound family devotion. Candace Bure as DJ Tanner, the principled protagonist of the Painted Lady Playhouse. Born on April 6, 1976 in Panorama City, California, the resilient young starlet emerged from the formidable shadow of her brother's teen idol fame to assume the mantle of television's ultimate eldest daughter. At the age of 11, Bure stepped onto the set of Full House as Donna Jo DJ Tanner, the responsible, level-headed anchor of a 3-man, 3-girl domestic experiment. For 8 seasons, her portrayal served as the emotional North Star for the Tanner household, immortalizing the relatable growing pains of adolescence for a global audience. She stood as the pragmatic princess of the TGIF era, a steady and sensible icon whose journey through high school heartbreaks and suburban milestones transformed her into the quintessential big sister for an entire generation. Behind the sunny facade of the Tanner house, however, Bure navigated a landscape of silent suffering and profound personal transformation. Following the show's conclusion, she spiraled into a harrowing battle with bulimia, a secret struggle fueled by the immense pressure to maintain a perfect image in the wake of child stardom. Her personal life eventually found a permanent anchor in her 1996 marriage to NHL star Valerie Bure, a union that has endured for 3 decades but was not without its own domestic trials. As she leaned further into her convictions, she transitioned from America's sweetheart to a polarizing firebrand of faith, sparking intense cultural debate and facing a tidal wave of public backlash in the early 2020s. Her high-profile departure from the Hallmark Channel to join Great American Family was a defining professional gamble as she sought to reshape the landscape of holiday storytelling around traditional values, even at the cost of long-standing industry relationships. Eventually reclaiming her narrative as a powerhouse executive and creative force, Bure transformed her nostalgic legacy into a sprawling multimedia empire. She successfully revived her iconic role for 5 seasons of Fuller House, while simultaneously ascending to the role of Chief Creative Officer at Great American Family. At 50, she stands as one of the most influential figures in faith-based entertainment, boasting an estimated net worth of $15 million. Residing in California and celebrating 30 years of marriage, she remains a resilient mogul who turned the DJ Tanner blueprint into a foundation for a billion-dollar holiday niche, proving that while her views may divide the public, her dedication to her family and her personal ethos remains an unshakable cornerstone of her 21st century legacy. Dave Coulier as Joey Gladstone, the whimsical wizard of the woodchuck basement. Born David Allen Coulier on September 21, 1959 in St. Clair Shores, Michigan, the master of 1,000 voices ascended to the throne of television's favorite surrogate uncle just as the late 80s comedy boom reached its peak. At the age of 28, Coulier assumed the mantle of Joey Gladstone, the mulleted Hawaiian shirt-wearing bachelor who traded the stand-up stage for a life in the Tanner family basement. For 8 seasons, his flawless impressions and the legendary "cut it out" catchphrase provided the quirky comedic heartbeat of the household. He stood as the vaudevillian vanguard of the TGIF era, a tireless entertainer whose woodchuck puppets and clean comedy ethos transformed the role of the best friend into a cornerstone of 90s pop culture. Beyond the voices and the laughter, however, Coulier navigated a landscape of staggering personal tragedy and a grueling medical odyssey. While he projected a perpetually light-hearted image, he privately battled a destructive dependence on alcohol, eventually choosing the path of sobriety on January 1, 2020. This internal victory was soon followed by a brutal gauntlet of grief as he lost his brother, his sister, and his creative brother-in-arms, Bob Saget, in rapid succession. The most harrowing trial arrived in late 2024 with a diagnosis of stage 3 non-Hodgkin lymphoma. Just as he achieved remission in early 2025, he was struck by a second unrelated battle with squamous cell carcinoma. He spent the final months of 2025 in a high-stakes fight for his life, completing his radiation treatments on New Year's Eve, entering 2026 as a survivor who had looked into the abyss and refused to blink. Eventually finding his ultimate sanctuary in a stable decade-long marriage to Melissa, Coulier has transformed his journey into a powerful platform for advocacy and connection. He has successfully reclaimed his narrative through the popular rewatch podcast Full House Rewind, proving that his comedic spirit remains untouched by the scars of his battles. At 66, he stands as a triumphant figure of health and hope, boasting an estimated net worth of $5 million. Residing in California and celebrating his second year of cancer-free life, he remains a resilient elder statesman of the industry, a man who proved that while the Joey Gladstone persona was built on jokes, the man himself was built on an unbreakable foundation of grit and grace. Scott Weinger as Steve Hale, the Letterman-clad legend of the Tanner kitchen. Born on October 5, 1975 in New York City, the golden boy of the 90s ascended to the throne of teenage royalty just as the TGIF lineup reached its cultural zenith. At the age of 16, Weinger assumed the mantle of Steve Hale, the wrestling star, varsity jacket icon, and bottomless pit boyfriend who captured the heart of DJ Tanner. For 5 seasons, his portrayal served as the ultimate blueprint for the boy next door, immortalizing the endearing charm of a high school sweetheart who was as likely to offer a shoulder to cry on as he was to finish the family's leftovers. He stood as the wholesome heartthrob of the San Francisco suburbs, a charismatic titan who simultaneously voiced Disney's Aladdin, effectively becoming the most recognizable diamond in the rough in the world. While Steve Hale was often depicted as a lovable, simple-minded jock, Scott Weinger navigated a far more intellectually rigorous reality behind the scenes. He fought a tireless internal battle against the dim-witted stereotype that threatened to define his future. In a move that sent shockwaves through the industry, he chose to walk away from the spotlight at the peak of his fame to conquer the ivy-covered halls of Harvard University. Graduating magna cum laude, he proved that his intellect functioned with a precision far beyond the sandwich-snacking persona of his youth. This daring professional pivot was not without its hurdles. He faced the brutal creative cage of typecasting, struggling for years to convince Hollywood that he belonged in the writer's room rather than in front of the camera as a former child star. Weinger eventually orchestrated a triumphant second act, reinventing himself as a high-level producer and writer for modern classics like Blackish and Gallivant. He successfully reclaimed his legacy by producing and starring in the Fuller House revival, finally delivering the Steve and DJ romantic endgame that fans had craved for 3 decades. Finding his ultimate sanctuary in a powerhouse creative partnership, he has been happily married to fellow television writer and showrunner Reena Mimoun since 2008. At 50, he is a formidable force in the industry, currently serving as an executive producer on the high-stakes Hulu series Paradise, and boasting an estimated net worth of $6 million. Residing in Los Angeles, he remains a resilient elder statesman of the industry, a man who proved that the most impressive magic carpet ride is the one you build for yourself behind the scenes. Jodie Sweetin as Stephanie Tanner, the precocious powerhouse of the dance floor dynasty. Born Jodie Lee Ann Sweetin on January 19, 1982 in Los Angeles, California. The naturally gifted performer ascended to the throne of television's most vibrant middle child long before she had even mastered her multiplication tables. At the age of 5, Sweetin assumed the mantle of Stephanie Tanner, the energetic, dance-loving, and sharp-witted center of the Tanner household. For 8 seasons, her impeccable comedic timing and legendary "How rude" catchphrase served as the rhythmic heartbeat of the series. She stood as the spirited starlet of the TGIF era, a pint-sized titan whose high-energy performances and transition from a bubbly toddler to a relatable teenager transformed her into a global icon for millions of viewers growing up in her shadow. Beyond the pigtails and the laughter, however, Sweetin navigated a landscape of shattering personal tragedy and marital volatility. Following the show's conclusion in 1995, she spiraled into a harrowing decade-long descent into substance abuse, battling addictions to methamphetamines, ecstasy, and alcohol that nearly cost her her life. This internal disintegration was mirrored in her turbulent romantic history. She endured 3 high-profile divorces, first to Sean Holgan, then Cody Herpin, and later Morty Coyle, as she struggled to find emotional stability amidst the wreckage of her addiction. She carried the agonizing burden of being America's sweetheart, while secretly frequenting emergency rooms and pawn shops, a duality she finally laid bare in her raw, visceral memoir, Unsweetened. Eventually staging a triumphant and permanent redemption, Sweetin transformed her scars into a powerful platform for global advocacy. She successfully reclaimed her legacy by reprising her role in the hit sequel series Fuller House, and found her ultimate romantic sanctuary in her 2022 marriage to Mescal Wasilewski, a union that has become her primary emotional anchor. At 44, she remains a formidable force in the industry, balancing her acting career with a respected role as a clinical medical assistant and addiction counselor. With an estimated net worth of $2 million, she resides in Los Angeles, serving as a resilient elder statesman of recovery, a woman who survived the brutal downward spiral of child stardom to emerge as a celebrated voice of hope, healing, and authentic reinvention. Bob Saget as Danny Tanner, the fastidious father of the Fog City Firehouse. Born on May 17, 1956 in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, the towering comic with a razor-sharp wit assumed the mantle of television's most obsessively clean patriarch just as the family sitcom entered its golden era. At the age of 31, Saget stepped into the role of Danny Tanner, the widowed vacuum-wielding and endlessly affectionate morning show host of Full House. For 8 seasons, his portrayal served as the moral compass of the San Francisco soundstage, immortalizing the hug-it-out resolution and the quest for a perfectly organized cleaning closet. He stood as the wholesome warden of the Painted Lady, a gentle titan whose sincerity and paternal warmth transformed the role of a grieving widower into a legendary icon of 1990s domestic stability. Behind the lens and the hugs, however, Saget navigated a landscape of staggering personal tragedy and a jarring professional duality. While he was celebrated as America's dad, he lived a double life as one of the industry's most boundary-pushing, dirty stand-up comedians, a creative outlet he used to cope with a series of devastating losses. He was haunted by the tragic deaths of his sisters Andrea and Gay. Gay's agonizing battle with scleroderma became his life's mission, driving him to raise millions for research while privately carrying the weight of his grief. His personal life was further marked by the shattering of his 15-year marriage to Sherry Kramer in 1997, a divorce that left him struggling to balance his public persona with the reality of being a single father in the aftermath of his sitcom stardom. Eventually finding a serene final act, Saget orchestrated a triumphant return to the Tanner household in Fuller House and found his ultimate romantic sanctuary in his 2018 marriage to Kelly Rizzo. He spent his final years as a beloved mentor to his television children and a tireless advocate for scleroderma awareness, moving with a grace that transcended his comedic roots. His journey came to a shocking and tragic end on January 9, 2022, when he was found deceased in a Florida hotel room at the age of 65 due to accidental head trauma. In 2026, he remains a monumental figure in television history, with his estate valued at an estimated $50 million. He is remembered not just for the laughs and the cleaning supplies, but as a man of immense heart who proved that even the darkest tragedies could be met with a joke and a sincere, lingering hug. Andrea Barber as Kimmy Gibbler, the neon-clad neighbor of the San Francisco soundstage. Born on July 3, 1976 in Los Angeles, California, the introverted young performer was thrust into the center of a pop culture whirlwind long before she had truly found her own voice. At the age of 10, Barber assumed the mantle of Kimmy Gibbler, the zany, neon-clad, and perpetually uninvited next-door neighbor of the Tanner household. For 8 seasons, her impeccable comedic timing and eccentric wardrobe served as the ultimate foil to the wholesome family dynamic, immortalizing the role of the annoying best friend with a flair that turned a minor guest spot into a legendary series staple. She stood as the bizarre breakout of the TGIF era, a comedic powerhouse whose foot-odor jokes and brash confidence transformed her into a beloved cultural icon for a generation of viewers. Behind the Gibbler jokes and the clashing patterns, however, Barber navigated a landscape of profound private turmoil and marital collapse. While she projected a persona of unapologetic audacity, she was a quiet introvert, battling a devastating internal war with postpartum depression and chronic anxiety, invisible demons that left her questioning her worth and her identity. This emotional struggle was punctuated by the shattering end of her 12-year marriage to Jeremy Ritke. She famously signed her final divorce papers just 4 days before receiving the life-changing call to return for the Fuller House reboot in 2014. For years, she carried the silent burden of being the girl next door, while privately grappling with the isolation of single motherhood and the debilitating fear that she was too broken to step back into the spotlight she had once abandoned. Eventually staging a triumphant return to Hollywood on her own terms, Barber transformed her nostalgic legacy into a platform for mental health advocacy and authentic connection. She reclaimed her narrative through her visceral memoir, Full Circle, and successfully reunited with her television sister, Jodie Sweetin, to co-host the popular rewatch podcast, How Rude Tanneritos, finding her ultimate sanctuary in a life balanced by distance, running, and family. She has emerged as a resilient voice for those battling silent anxieties. At 49, she stands as a celebrated figure of grit and grace with an estimated net worth of $2 million. Lori Loughlin as Rebecca Donaldson-Katsopolis, the sophisticated sovereign of the morning show airwaves. Born on July 28, 1964 in Queens, New York, the radiant former print model and daytime drama veteran ascended to the throne of television's most beloved aunt just as the TGIF phenomenon began to sweep the nation. At the age of 24, Loughlin assumed the mantle of Rebecca Donaldson, the poised, career-driven, and endlessly sensible co-host of Wake Up San Francisco. Initially slated for a brief appearance, her undeniable chemistry with John Stamos transformed her into a permanent fixture of the Tanner family tree. For 7 seasons, she served as the rational anchor of the Katsopolis household, a shimmering icon of maternal warmth and professional integrity whose Aunt Becky persona became the gold standard for wholesome family values in the 90s. Beyond the radiant smile and the suburban perfection, however, Loughlin's life became a landscape of high society scandal and marital upheaval. Her 1997 marriage to fashion mogul Massimo Giannulli, a union of Hollywood royalty and high fashion ambition, became the foundation of a private dynasty that would eventually face a Shakespearean downfall. The stark contrast between Aunt Becky's moral compass and Loughlin's real-world trajectory shattered in 2019 during the Varsity Blues college admissions scandal. Pleading guilty to conspiracy charges, she endured a harrowing public cancellation, a brief prison sentence, and the devastating loss of her professional reputation. For years, she carried the agonizing weight of being a fallen idol, watching her lucrative Hallmark empire vanish while her family was scrutinized under the unforgiving glare of a global legal frenzy. She successfully found a new sanctuary with the Great American Family Network, leaning into her nostalgia while acknowledging her past with a newfound vulnerability. At 61, she remains a significant figure in the television movie landscape, boasting a massive combined net worth of approximately $70 million alongside her husband. Residing in a high-security Los Angeles estate and focusing on philanthropic efforts, she has emerged as a survivor of her own public wreckage, a woman who traded the effortless perfection of the 90s for a hard-won 21st century legacy of resilience and personal reconstruction. Mary-Kate and Ashley Olsen as Michelle Tanner, the twin titans of the toddler-to-trendsetter empire. Born on June 13, 1986, in Sherman Oaks, California, the wide-eyed duo ascended to the throne of television's most powerful toddlers before they had even reached their first birthday. At only 9 months old, the Olsen twins assumed the mantle of Michelle Tanner, the adorable catchphrase-slinging youngest sister who became the undisputed heart of the series. For 8 seasons, their flawless alternating performances and legendary lines like, "You got it, dude," and "No way, Jose," served as the ultimate ratings magnet. They stood as the golden girls of the TGIF era, a pint-sized phenomenon whose synchronized charm and innocent mischief transformed the role of the baby of the house into a billion-dollar global brand that captivated audiences around the world. Beyond the pigtails and the infectious laughter, however, the twins navigated a landscape of extraordinary professional pressure and private hardship. While they projected an image of effortless childhood joy, they were functioning as the primary engines of a massive media conglomerate dual star, effectively losing their anonymity before they could even form memories. The transition into adulthood was marked by a harrowing struggle with the paparazzi's lens and intense media scrutiny, culminating in Mary-Kate's highly publicized battle with an eating disorder in the early 2000s. The pressure to maintain a perfect twin persona created an agonizing duality. They privately carried the weight of a multi-million-dollar legacy while simultaneously fighting to define themselves as individuals amidst the wreckage of their early-onset fame. Eventually staging the most radical and successful pivot in Hollywood history, the sisters chose to permanently retire from acting famously, refusing to reprise their role in Fuller House, to focus on their true calling in high fashion. They transformed their nostalgic past into an avant-garde future, establishing the luxury fashion house The Row, which has become a titan of the quiet luxury movement. At 39, they stand as formidable moguls with a staggering combined net worth of $500 million. Residing in New York City and maintaining a legendary level of privacy, they have emerged as the ultimate survivors of child stardom women who traded the bright lights of the soundstage for the sophisticated silhouettes of the runway, proving that their true legacy was never a catchphrase, but an unshakable empire of their own design. Marla Sokoloff as Gia Mahan, the flannel-clad firebrand of the junior high jungle. Born on December 19, 1980, in San Francisco, California, the sharp-witted young performer ascended to the throne of television's bad girl archetype long before she had even finished her own 8th grade year. At the age of 12, Sokoloff assumed the mantle of Gia Mahan, the chain-smoking, grunge-wearing rebel who served as the ultimate corrupting influence for the wholesome Stephanie Tanner. For the final seasons of the series, her portrayal provided a gritty, leather-jacketed contrast to the Tanner household's pinstriped perfection, immortalizing the thrill of joy rides and the legendary allure of teenage rebellion. She stood as the defiant outlier of the San Francisco soundstage, a charismatic force whose evolution from a schoolyard antagonist to a loyal, edgy best friend transformed her into a cult favorite icon for the 90s alternative generation. Beyond the flannel and the mean girl sneer, however, Sokoloff navigated a landscape of professional confinement and the invisible shackles of typecasting. While she projected a persona of effortless cool, she fought a tireless internal battle against a Hollywood system that refused to see the multifaceted artist beneath the bad girl label. This creative cage often left her feeling pigeonholed, struggling for years to secure diverse roles that didn't demand the same cynical smirk of her youth. Her personal life found its permanent anchor in her 2009 marriage to musician and composer Alec Puro, a 17-year union that became her emotional sanctuary amidst the fickle tides of the industry. Together, they navigated the complexities of raising 3 daughters, while Sokoloff transitioned from being a pawn in other people's scripts to a woman calling the shots behind the camera. Eventually staging a triumphant second act, Sokoloff transformed her nostalgic legacy into a thriving career as a director and writer, taking full control of her narrative. She successfully revisited her iconic role for the Fuller House revival, transforming Gia into a relatable soccer mom with her edge still intact, while simultaneously establishing herself as a prolific director of holiday films and television dramas. At 45, she stands as a formidable creative force with an estimated net worth of $3 million. Residing in Los Angeles, she remains a resilient elder statesman of the industry, a woman who successfully traded the bad girl reputation for a hard-won legacy of authority, artistic vision, and a self-made seat in the director's chair. Tahj Mowry as Teddy, the precocious prince of the preschool playground. Born on May 17, 1986, in Honolulu, Hawaii, the pint-sized performer with the megawatt smile ascended to the throne of toddler-era stardom long before he had even entered grade school. At the age of 5, Mowry assumed the mantle of Teddy, the polite, impeccably dressed, and ever-loyal best friend to Michelle Tanner. For 4 seasons, his undeniable chemistry with the Olsen twins and his oversized pinstriped shirts served as the innocent rhythmic heartbeat of the Tanner family's social circle. He stood as the charismatic confidant of the San Francisco soundstage, a miniature titan whose effortless charm transformed the role of the boy next door into a legendary cultural springboard, proving he was a formidable talent in his own right within his family's sprawling Hollywood dynasty. Beyond the carefree homey persona and the high IQ laughs of his later sitcom success, Mowry navigated a landscape of jarring professional isolation and profound personal grief. While he projected an image of effortless brilliance as the lead of Smart Guy, the sunset of the series thrust him into a brutal social wilderness. Returning to a traditional middle school, he faced the agonizing resentment of peers who sought to tear down the TV genius they saw on screen. However, his most visceral trial arrived in 2020 with the shattering loss of his first love, Naya Rivera. Navigating the public tragedy with a quiet, faith-driven resilience, he carried the silent burden of a shattered heart, while the industry continued to view him through the lens of a perpetual child star. A creative cage that required years of athletic grit and collegiate football to finally dismantle. Eventually staging a triumphant adult comeback, Mowry successfully shed the cute kid archetype through a 6-season run on the hit series Baby Daddy and his acclaimed turn in The Muppets Mayhem. He has transformed his nostalgic legacy into a platform for health and disciplined longevity, carving out a respected niche as a seasoned veteran of the multi-cam format. At 39, he remains a steady and revitalized presence in the Hollywood landscape, boasting an estimated net worth of $1.5 million. Residing in Los Angeles and maintaining a fiercely private personal life, he has emerged as a resilient survivor of the child star era, a man who traded the pigtails and playdates of the 90s for a hard-won, multifaceted legacy of professional endurance and authentic maturity. Jason Marsden as Nelson Burkhard, the wealthy whiz kid of the San Francisco elite. Born on January 3, 1975 in Providence, Rhode Island, the seasoned child prodigy ascended to the throne of television's most persistent suitor, just as the Full House era reached its final sunset. At the age of 19, Marsden assumed the mantle of Nelson Burkhard, the multimillionaire self-effacing heir who attempted to win DJ Tanner's heart with the sheer power of his father's checkbook. For the show's 8th season, his portrayal provided a charming, rich kid contrast to the everyday suburban struggles of the Tanner clan, immortalizing the awkward persistence of a young mogul in love. He stood as the polished patrician of the North Fork High social circle, a charismatic talent whose youthful appearance and comedic timing transformed a recurring guest spot into a legendary symbol of 90s wealth and adolescent pining. Beyond the pinstriped suits and the effortless ease of the Burkhard fortune, however, Marsden navigated a landscape of profound personal loss and a daring creative reinvention. While he projected an image of a spoiled elite, his real-world journey was defined by the relentless hustle of a working-class actor. In a visionary pivot, he traded the bright lights of the soundstage for the isolated booths of voiceover legend, famously providing the soul for Disney's Thackeray Binks and the energetic Max Goof. Yet his transition was shadowed by visceral private tragedies. In 2020, he endured the shattering of his 16-year marriage to Christy Hicks and the devastating financial blow of permanently closing his beloved Burbank business Yoga Blend due to the global pandemic. He carried the silent burden of a collapsing personal world, while simultaneously choosing to honor his commitment to his fans, notably declining a return for Fuller House, to remain loyal to his promised appearance at DragonCon, a move that solidified his status as a man of his word in a fickle industry. He successfully reclaimed his narrative through his production company Mars Presents and the launch of the Mars Variety Show, a digital sanctuary for indie performers that echoes the vaudevillian spirit of his youth. At 51, he stands as a formidable titan of the convention circuit with an estimated net worth of $700,000. Residing in Nashville, Tennessee, he has emerged as a resilient elder statesman of the industry. A man who successfully traded the Nelson-Burkhard silver spoon for a hard-won, multifaceted legacy of vocal genius and authentic self-made success. Miko Hughes as Aaron Bailey, the spiked-haired saboteur of the San Francisco playground. Born on February 22, 1986 in Apple Valley, California, the prodigious young performer ascended to the throne of television's frenemy long before he had even reached his first decade. At the age of 3, Hughes assumed the mantle of Aaron Bailey, the spiked-haired, condescending, and perpetually unimpressed playmate of the Tanner household. For 5 seasons, his portrayal served as the ultimate comedic antagonist to Michelle Tanner, immortalizing the razor-sharp insults and bratty neighbor sneers that seemed impossibly sophisticated for a toddler. He stood as the miniature menace of the North Fork preschool, a pint-sized titan who simultaneously haunted global audiences in horror landmarks like Pet Sematary, while providing a cynical, scene-stealing contrast to the pinstriped perfection of the Full House nursery. Beyond the biting one-liners and the blockbusters of his youth, however, Hughes navigated a landscape of profound social isolation and the invisible shackles of child stardom. While he projected a persona of terrifying confidence as the undead Gage Creed or the high-stakes genius of Mercury Rising, he was privately battling a stunted adolescence, trading the hallmark experiences of a traditional high school for the lonely glow of studio heat and private tutors. This creative cage led to a lingering battle with imposter syndrome, as he struggled for years to reconcile his adult identity with the massive fame he garnered for performances given before he could even read a script. He carried the silent burden of the creepy kid stigma, navigating an industry that often struggled to see the grounded, multifaceted man beneath the haunting gaze of his cinematic past. Eventually, staging a triumphant second act far from the glitz of the A-list Hughes, transformed his nostalgic legacy into a thriving empire within the horror and indie film communities. He successfully reclaimed his narrative by stepping behind the lens, reinventing himself as a director and screenwriter for anthology projects while maintaining a fierce private independence. We watched them grow up before our eyes, but life after the sitcom wasn't always a fairy tale. From soaring triumphs to private struggles, the cast of Full House proved that even the brightest stars face the night. Who was your favorite character growing up? Let us know in the comments, hit that like button, and subscribe to keep the nostalgia alive. Every story deserves to be heard. We watched them grow up before our eyes, but life after the sitcom wasn't always a fairy tale. From soaring triumphs to private struggles, the cast of Full House proved that even the brightest stars face the night. Who was your favorite character growing up? Let us know in the comments, hit that like button and subscribe to keep the nostalgia alive. Every story deserves to be heard.